All right, let's talk about vaccine passports. Ugh, and how terrible they are. Look, I'm just going to preface this with follow your doctor's advice. Always listen to your doctor and do what's best for you. That being said, this is crazy. These vaccine passports are being pushed everywhere, and people are rising up across the world. In fact, I have images here. Ireland, France, where else? Um, Sydney, Australia, Israel, man, Bulgaria, all these different places, Austria also. It's like these people are rising up. In Italy, they are burning their vaccine cards to
Yeah.
stand in solidarity with the people that are saying, I don't want to get this, and they're like, you shouldn't be forced to get it. Um, and we were talking earlier, and it's like, I agree with you. You were saying that, look, if you are at risk, I get it. Like, I have nothing against the people that want to get it. But if it works, then it shouldn't be a problem. I'm not killing anybody if I personally don't want to get it, because if you feel fear for this, get the vaccine and then it'll be fine.
And part of the problem with that is that the discourse right now is it's so toxic and it's so rancorous and frankly so
Yep.
stupid. And I was talking to a
Yeah.
mentor of
Yeah.
mine. I was talking to a mentor of mine earlier today about this, and I said, I'm somebody again. My position. I do question the what we're the safety of the I guess for the sake of simplicity, I'll call it a vaccine. But
Right.
but never with necessarily the efficacy and effectiveness of it. My position is,
Okay.
again, consult your doctor, obviously. But if that's a choice that you need to make, and you're someone who is, over 65, you have a compromised immune system. I mean, part of the difficulty right now, even though I push back very strongly online about the mandates disproportionately affecting the Black community. I mean, the fact of the matter is, you also have to be fair and say, well, look, in Black America, there is a prevalence of overweight people. There's an obesity issue, and with that comes several key underlying comorbidities or
I think that's
conditions
just
that
Americans in
contribute.
general.
Yeah, but it's look, the CDC, I don't know if we want to trust them, but this has been on the books for years. I mean, I think they said 70% of Black women between the ages of 17 and 60 or something like that are overweight or obese.
Wow.
And that's going to lead to some problems, and namely heart disease, diabetes, and high blood pressure, which runs in my family. I mean, my mom took medication for it. My grandmother took medication for it. I was prescribed medication for it at 25 years of age. It's one of the reasons I work out so much now, is that my levels
Wow.
are normal. And COVID was basically a mild cold for me. So
Yeah.
why aren't we putting out more of those stories, in terms of public health messaging? But the point is that, there is a tragedy in terms of the low vaccine uptake among Black Americans, and that this is a group that could that could conceivably benefit disproportionately from higher vaccine uptake, and yet they're
Right.
still refusing to take it. I think that there are people that definitely in communities that are difficult to reach that could probably benefit from it, but at the same time, just by and large, Black people ain't taking this. And I was thinking about this last night, is that there's so many things that Black people believe. We are some conspiracy believing. Can we curse? I was gonna say MFers,
No.
but
Yeah. Thank
all
you
right,
for
so I
not.
won't.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are so many conversations in Black barbershops around the country that would get people banned and suspended from Twitter. I'm
Yeah.
down here in Atlanta. It is a chocolate city. I mean, I've had people, people young and old, talk about how the whole rollout and even the whole pandemic is this sort of weird conspiracy, and that people are talking about Marvin Hagler and DMX and what happened with them,
Yeah.
and so it's not uncommon. And when you have on top of that, and part of my thing with this whole issue, this passport issue, at least in America, is that it's blatantly discriminatory at a disproportionate rate to Black people, and Latinos second place. Although, side note, I think Asian Americans have like a 65% vaccination rate. So we're going to see how white adjacent they remain
Right.
with these high vaccination rates. But um, it's the sheer hypocrisy of it, because if we all recall, last year, the very same people demanding that we impose these mandates that will disproportionately discriminate against Black people are the same people that were pushing anti-racism. They were destroying
Yep.
cities and Black-owned businesses for the sake of quote unquote Black Lives Mattering. And yet
Yep.
here they are turning around a year later and discriminating against I mean, to have Don Lemon on CNN talking about, well, you don't have the vaccine, you can't do this, you don't have the vaccine. I'm like, dude, you're talking about people who look like you. And I don't think that they really understand that, or if they do understand that, they don't
They don't
care.
care. They don't
And
care.
when I bring this up, I mean, the pushback that I get is that so-called anti-vaxxers are using this race or race baiting. I mean, it's pure projection for one, but using
Of
race
course.
baiting in order to further their own agenda. There is this tendency. To me, it's an extension of the tendency of people on the left to completely deny the agency of Black Americans. And the thing is, it's a failure to kind of understand and comprehend Black culture and Black psychology in America. And it goes beyond political lines, because if you're on the right and you're Black, you're going to have issues with government and skepticism of the government for those reasons. And if you're on the left, guess what? What have you been told all your life? The government is racist. America is white supremacist. Every institution, from education to entertainment to media to the medical apparatus, is racist and out to get you, and you shouldn't trust it. And now you want them to turn around and just line up and get this sorry, but this new injection. They're not going to do it.
No,
You
I
know,
mean,
and
look,
so in a way,
this
it's
is
the chickens coming home to roost, because it's now Black people saying like, I don't trust that. I mean, that's literally what they say. They don't trust it.
the CDC reported today that only 28.4% of the Black community has received the COVID vaccine. And with New York mandating it, this is actually just came out from New York here. This is de Blasio's, the key to NYC unlocks. Literally, you need a vaccine passport to do all of these things: movie theaters, live music, concert venues, museums, galleries, aquariums, professional sports arenas, stadiums, bowling alleys, restaurants, event spaces, bars, literally everything you do in NYC, bakeries, cafeterias, grocery stores. You can't go grocery shopping anymore.
And let me say, like, you skipped over performing arts theaters, but here's
Sorry,
what's
excuse me.
but here's the salient point about that, because right now, especially in the wake of George Floyd's death, my industry has been completely taken over by this obsession with anti-racism. Okay. I'll call it the cult of anti-racism. Yeah. And I mean, literally, I mean, you see these emails that I get from our unions, and just this idea of justice and equity and inclusion. And part of the complaint, and it's a good complaint in terms of theaters around the country and in New York, trying to reach more audiences, reach more diverse audiences. Because the fact of the matter is, if you're talking about typical Black America, theater going, first of all, a lot of us don't have the luxury of having the money to just go see a play on on Friday night or matinee on the weekends. It's just not really deeply ingrained in the Black culture in a lot of ways, in the same way that maybe music and sports are, or church. On top of that,
you're generalizing it a little bit too, because earlier you said like whatever the Black experience is, because like you said, like there is only one Black experience. It's almost like you're saying that it is something that is an experience because of what you just said right now. You know what I mean? I just had to call that out because I caught it. I'm like, well, you're kind of saying that there's a generalized Black experience that you said earlier that isn't necessarily true.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is. I'll put it this way: you're far more likely to find I mean, I'm an atheist, right? And like, you're far more likely to find a Black person who has church stories, than you are to find a Black person who says, yeah, I grew up going to the theater. Okay. I think on an individual basis, people vary, but in terms of Black America, there is there are some like sort of shared kind of collective experiences, but even within that, you have Nigerians who have their kind of point of view. You have Jamaicans who have their own point of view. Trinidadians who come in who have their own point of view.
Yeah.
So there is variety in that. But in the Black American experience, you have immigrants from the African diaspora. So I do try to shy away from generalizations, but at the same time, there are patterns and trends that you do notice.
Okay.
And but the irony is, these people want to reach out to find more Black audiences, but now they're excluding them completely from, not completely, but they're excluding them from coming to the theater. At the same time, they're saying we want more people in there. So there's just a complete complete lack and inability to honor Black people's choices and freedom and autonomy and agency.
Yeah.
But also, it just seems as though they don't really care about what they say that they care about if they're going to go through with these measures. And Ibram X. Kendi, this brilliant man, wrote that his definition of a racist policy is a policy that creates racist results. I mean, that's pretty much what he says.
Yeah.
And this inevitably creates racist results. And the fact that, and the pushback that I get about that is that people say, well, they have the choice to get it, so they can get it. I don't see how this is discriminatory. I'm like, well, they're being forced to take it in order to go grocery shopping or participate in society. Or people say, well, you need to get a flu shot. I'm like, no, we don't need to get a flu shot every year. I was doing a show where half my cast got the flu shot, and they got sick. I did not.
Right.
And I'm working with.
I haven't had a flu shot my entire adult life. Not once.
I mean, you don't need it, and no one's telling me that you have to get a flu shot in order to.
Exactly.
I mean, like there was if anyone wants to call me an anti-vaxxer, I mean, there was a few years ago with my ex-girlfriend. I was visiting her with her family out in California. They had she had a newborn niece, and the nieces, her parents were just requested that anyone who wanted to come and see the new baby get a flu shot. I was like, yeah, I want to see little girl. You know what I mean? Like, let me shoot me up, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I book a job or a movie that shoots in a country that says like, well, you need to take this vaccine for yellow fever, I'm going to take it because I do not want yellow fever. I have already recovered from COVID-19, however, so I don't see why I'm being forced to take this thing, and why we're ignoring the idea of natural immunity, or the idea that we're calling natural immunity a right-wing talking point. It's very
crazy to me. That's crazy to me.
And
it's like the cells gain the memory. I mean, we're borderline here, but it's. I mean, you and I feel the same way as you do about it, though. It's pretty insane.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, we can still be rational about it. It's just that we can ask very reasonable questions and say like, what? Because and part of the problem too, and I'm thinking about this earlier, is that there's like kind of three different realities kind of coexisting, which makes it more confusing. In one reality, the shots are 100% safe and effective, and like there's very little side effects and nothing happens. And it's this other reality, I'll use ban resistant language, but in this other reality, there are how can I say this? Technologies and
I don't think you need to say anything. I think everyone knows.
You know where I'm going.
The alternate reality of the opposite side of the spectrum. All right, guys, you guys know what he's talking about.
There's like a mass event coming up. I mean, I've seen this stuff. I see what the more extreme claims are, but then there's this third reality, which I feel like a lot of us are trying to wade through.
It's the bell curve. I feel like there's people on this side and people on this side, and most people are in the middle. Like, these two sides are crazy. That's crazy, and that's crazy. Both of these.
And I break a little from there's a camp called Team Reality, and we are people from across the political spectrum. A lot of us are on the left who are saying like, wait a minute, these measures they're not really making sense for a variety of reasons. And I think a lot of people, even on I differ with people on Team Reality in terms of they're sort of. I sort of accuse them of being myopically focused on vaccines as the way out, as opposed to, in the same way that some people say like, well, masks are the only way out, or lockdown are the only way out. I think there's too much of a focus on it. But this third reality, I think, is that there's people that are like, we're trying to navigate what this is. It seems to be that most people take it, and at least in the short term, they're fine. But there
Yeah.
also seems to be a lot of suppressed discussion and evidence to suggest
Some.
that there's something else going on here, and that people are
Yeah.
having a really hard time with this. And
Yeah.
we should be able to talk about that so that people can really accurately assess what kind of risks they're taking in terms of taking this this drug that's been approved for emergency use. And I think that's completely fair. I mean, my thing is just that, just there's different ways to skin a cat, and there are multiple ways that we can attack this disease that appear to be available. And the fact that only one avenue is socially acceptable to explore, and that only one avenue is being pursued, and the only one avenue is being mandated by your employers and
Exactly.
by government officials, that I think deserves some examination and some real skepticism and questioning. But
Agreed.
now, because of that, I'm being lumped in with people in this reality over here who talk about mass events and various technologies and so on and so forth. And I think that's completely just it's not fair. And
Well, there's an image of progressive leftism folks, and it's a spectrum, right? There's the center line, okay, and they started here, and then conservatives are here. Here's the line, right? And they've gotten so far over there that you're here standing in the center, like you said, you're in that third group, but they're so far over there that when they look over, they see someone like you and I standing there in the middle, but it looks like we're standing right next to the people that are further to the right of us, and it's like, oh, you guys are all bigots, racists, misogynistics, anti-vaxxers, all of the freaking buzzwords that they shout to the sky when they freak out.
Yeah, and it's very and something that's really strange about it as well is that the level of dehumanization I'm seeing right now is very, very disturbing to me. And and it's just funny that whenever you start to break Godwin's law, people jump down your throat about it. But at the same time, these are the same people that were talking about Orange Hitler for the last 4 years.
Look at this. This is a list of in 1942 in France, all Jewish people weren't allowed in restaurants, cafes, theaters, concerts, music halls, telephone cabins, and then of course it's bibliotheques, libraries. So it's like you mentioned it, and I mean there's direct comparisons now that we're seeing. Okay, so sure, it's not Jewish people anymore. Now it's the unvaccinated, because they're the threat, that, like you said, the dehumanization. That's exactly what was going on back then, and now they're doing it now.
And I've been reading a lot lately about I think one of the things that's most urgent to me to understand right now is what happens to art and artists during the rise of authoritarian regimes, and how do you combat that? How do you go against that? What can you do to fight in the face of that, to avoid any of the same kind of mistakes that happened again? And I think there's a really weird thing where I'll back up and give an example. So there's a great playwright named Arthur Miller who wrote The Crucible. He wrote Death of a Salesman, and back in the mid 20th century, he's writing. The Crucible is an allegory about communism, basically. These Salem witch hunts, although it's on the side of the Marxists. But there's a brilliant playwright who wrote the foreword to a recent collection of his plays that was published, and she writes about how in the 1950s there was there was a paranoia about communism for some reason. And she literally wrote that. And one of the biggest things I see is that there's a refusal or just a complete ignorance on the I guess the so-called left to acknowledge that, okay, we all understand that Nazis were bad and Nazism was bad, but what the people that are being characterized as right wing now, who are talking about commies all the time, we're saying no, it's not as though we disagree with your ideals in terms of creating a just society and having freedom for all yada yada yada. It's that we are seeing the ideological roots of what you want, and we've seen them before, and we have a historical record on
Yeah,
where that leads. And
exactly.
what we're saying now is that there are disturbing parallels to what's happening right now to what happened back then. And but they it's completely it's seen it. They can't see it, you know, they don't see
Yep.
it. And
They're brainwashed. So,
I don't know, you know, how you square that circle. When it gets to the point where they are completely fine with discriminating against a huge minority that they claimed to champion just a year before, the
yep.
same minority that disproportionately was like, you know, they're working as trash collectors, they're delivering your food, they're working in kitchens, they're mechanics for public transit, so on and so forth. These were the essential workers that we were supposed to clap for at 7 p.m. every
Yep.
night. And yet here, you know, the nurses, and yet now here you are saying, yeah, you can't come into my bar. You can't come into my bar, darky. I mean, sorry, it's just reminiscent of a previous era, and the fact
Yep.
that they can't, or they don't, or they just won't see that, you know, so it just leads you to the understanding or the idea that there's just something else that's going on that's deeper than maybe we have the language to even wrap our minds around and talk about. Maybe a mass psychosis, maybe some kind of some dearth of, I mean, again, I'm an atheist, but this dearth of spiritual fulfillment. I don't know what it is, but this lack of respect for humanity, the human condition, this lack of empathy, this lack of curiosity, lack of respect. I don't know what it is, but I mean, they're totally locked on this one course, and I don't seem to. I mean, I've been speaking out against lockdowns since last year. It's like, guys, come on. I mean, you have to see the costs and ramifications of this in a bigger, from a bigger perspective than you're seeing it right now. But they just don't. They can't do it.